Jenny. How are you?
Not too bad, Chris. And how are you?
I'm doing good. I mean, to me, like it's a short month, but February flew by, sprung up on us. Here we are with the second episode of 2022, and it's caught me off guard, caught me by surprise. But of course, it is an important one because we could not just let our loyal viewers get by a month without hearing and seeing what we have to say regarding security and surveillance and what it
Mm.
plays in AV.
We got
Tell
lucky
me.
there, didn't we?
Yeah,
So,
we did.
as we're clutching at what shall we do the next show on? And the UK guys have made an acquisition very recently of DVS Limited in Wales, who specialise in security and surveillance, that gave us the perfect show to bring you at short notice this month. So welcome back to Midwich Live, joining you this time on a Monday. We are streaming around the world via Midwich's YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch socials. Please ask us questions. Please comment throughout via the chat function on whichever platform you're joining us on. And if you don't get to watch today's show live or in full, you can watch it back on the YouTube channel. And you can also listen to us in podcast format too via Midwich Sound. So thank you so much for joining us. And I think what we'll do is just very quickly throw our combined support, love and prayers to everyone in the Ukraine. What you will probably see throughout the show today is some overlay graphics in yellow and blue. We received an email from the CEO of Restream. That's the platform that Chris and I use to bring Midwich Live to you each time, and that distributes it out via the various different channels that we use. He is a Ukrainian national, and actually a third of their workforce are based in Ukraine, and the company have taken all measures to make those colleagues safe. And we wish them the very best in these really quite troubling times. Yeah. So we are talking about security and surveillance. I guess feels particularly relevant with the state of the world at the moment. Now, we have recently made an acquisition, the Midwich Group, is something that we like to do in the UK, of DVS. They are a great company. We're going to introduce you to their CTO later on in the show. He is the expert. But Chris and I thought that we would try our hand at talking all things security and surveillance from an AV perspective for the next 10 or 15 minutes or so. Now, we've dabbled in this area just a little bit. So Midwich have historically in the UK had some access to some security based vendors. For me personally, the integration or the crossover has always come in command and control setups. So my background has involved a lot of image processing and video wall controllers, and they very quickly in the IP camera movement, learned to decode those streams, and many of the sort of network operations center or security setups that we've done, we've been involved in the processing, the video wall, the LED, or the projection, and another partner will have provided or installed, or perhaps they're already in situ the CCTV cameras or ANPR cameras or surveillance cameras, depending on what it does. So I guess the first question we're going to throw out to anyone that's joining us live and anyone that wants to comment when they're watching on demand as well is, which are you? Are you joining us as a security and surveillance integrator for the first time because you are a David Davies fan? Or are you our usual audience from the AV channel? And whichever you are, let us know which you are, but also let us know right now, if you're an AV integrator, are you supplying these products, installing them yourselves, or are you outsourcing to a specialist in that area? Now, in the US, we do dabble in security a little bit. Chris, tell us a little bit about that with A&D and what those guys do.
Yep. So in the US, we use advanced network devices. That's one of the products that we distribute, and they do IP endpoints, pretty much on mass notification, more so than security and surveillance. They're the ones that are going to be installed in schools and in corporate areas where, you need to get the message out quickly, and not necessarily a security thing, but weather notifications. If you're in the Midwest, tornadoes are a thing, right? And it happens quite often. You saw it in The Wizard of Oz. emails. It's real, folks. It does happen. So yes, you have mass notification, which is absolutely necessary. And like you alluded to, there are things in the world that are going on, and mass notification plays a major part in very getting the information out as quickly as possible and in a timely manner. Obviously, when you start talking about schools, there's a whole litany of unfortunate events that have happened regarding that. So the notification in schools are big too. But weather related has been something that has been impacting. Our world, especially here in the U.S., for quite some time. So it's an important thing. We had been working with advanced network devices for some time, and now, obviously, with DVS and what DVS brings in, it's a whole different level of security and surveillance. I'm interested because I know that we have a different group of people that are watching. When it comes to the security and surveillance, my question to you and to the folks that are listening, do you need a special certificate to do this sort of stuff? Is it because I'm going to play AV stupid, right? I'm a projector and audio guy. I love the big wow factors of LED walls, but I'm going to play stupid to the security side. Is there a point when you're about ready to take on a project and it does have some security and surveillance attached to it? Is it something that you need to be vetted by the company or the end user that needs some sort of security paperwork or vetting? Obviously, with the government, that is some top secret stuff. Obviously, uh, certain types of clearances are required. Let us know. Educate me. We can educate. So I would love to know what's going on. I also, if you're on the socials and you're watching us, put a little wave up. Let us know that you're there because we get to see the beauty of Restream. And what we do with the Restream is that we get to see all the social channels up on our screen. So we get to know who's out there. Like Julian, who just
Hi,
messaged us
Julian.
across. Hi, Julian. How are you? So yes, please drop us a note. Let us know that you're there and that we're not talking into the abyss, which is great because I know that you're there. We know. Anyway.
Well, I think what's been really interesting is that maybe if the group had made this acquisition, I don't know, over 2 years ago, I might have struggled a little bit to see how much of a synergy there really was between the two areas. And that's not to say that we don't have many customers who provide all realms of technology into the projects that they supply. But what we really saw when the pandemic hit was this kind of merger and reliance on digital signage systems, particularly on some of the security technology. Now, we'd always had some basic capability. We were starting to see a lot more interest in analytics around not facial recognition, but sort of gender recognition, emotional recognition, view time, how long people looked through content, and so on with signage. But what the pandemic did was turn that into a slightly different request, and it was more around queue control. A big interest in thermal solutions as well, which, if I'm honest, I don't know that I had fully recognized as existing. So we'd worked on projects in the past that involved heat mapping around a store so that you could see when somebody comes in to this store, they naturally migrate to this area. That's where the traffic sort of flows, and you could rearrange your point of sales displays accordingly to what you were trying to target. But actually, the pandemic really opened our eyes to thermal solutions in terms of your personal temperature checking when we were looking at symptoms of the people that were walking into various different campuses or establishments. And Midwich in the UK, we bought this technology, and we later then went on to distribute some of it as well, coming from the AV channel, these tablets, Towery tablets in our case, that will check your temperature on like a sign-in device to make sure that you are not symptomatic before you enter the building. Now, some of the solutions from DVS's largest partner, Hikvision, take this to a whole new level in terms of how capable they are and how accurate they are of determining somebody's temperature from seriously quite a distance back. Now, these solutions, some of them for queue control and for thermal, they're all still in place around the UK. And as I'm sure many of you know, we have no restrictions whatsoever now in our country. And I went to the supermarket last week and spotted straight away that the red light, green light system of coming in and out is still there. And I think there's going to be a real interest in how we repurpose some of this investment that was critical and absolutely needed to be made during the pandemic to give us relevant analysis and data now. Chris, did you see similar happening in the US? Was there investment into thermal solutions as an example?
Yeah, well, like everybody else, every little company or every shop in the world didn't know what to do when the pandemic kind of said, "Hey, everybody stay home." So the first reaction that we saw was, the person with the clicker standing at the door, and X amount of people can come in and X amount of people come out, and that's efficient or inefficient. Yes, you're creating a job for somebody to stand there, but how efficient is that really when, obviously you're trying to limit exposure, right? You don't want somebody at the door, you don't want people kind of doing that whole thing. So yes, you now have this this growing curiosity for for exactly what we're talking about here today. I think that as an for an audiovisual industry that like us or for traditional AV companies, we now have to look at the analytics that these devices are spitting out and take them seriously. So yes, if you are in the AV world, if you are an HR manager and you're out there listening, look for people that are data scientists. We need to employ those people. They need to be able to translate that data, not just for the fancy PowerPoints, but the actual data that shows how to make things work. Being in the industry for 20 plus years, I remember designing floors for corporate offices that were based on, the video conferencing MCU. So that was the digital part of it. So how many calls were kind of logged into the system at the time and how many hours were they used? And it really didn't show you the accurate reading of who was sitting in the room, what the call went through, if it was an empty room and somebody else was connected with two other sites, but your room was empty. And then ultimately, it also came down through going to physical phone books, right? Of who signed in and out of that space. If they had an Outlook, then you had to go through that. Much, much more involved process, but not the most accurate. You're now looking at, these systems that are typically been reserved for the building systems, right? Part of facilities now integrating with our equipment, and the information that's being spit out is exactly what we need to help design the systems going forward. So in my opinion, this acquisition or the ability to have security and surveillance now part of the early discussions for corporate restacks and floor remodels is super super critical, because that's what's actually going to define what what the huddle room will become, because that's kind of a mystery, Jenny. I've tried asking you, I stump you on this. You don't have an accurate term yet for what that room will become, because it's way too early. We're still waiting for what the huddle room is, because we need that buzz term back. But I don't think, I personally can't tell you if a huddle room is going to be 2, 4, 6, or 2 people in a room that used to be 6. It's so all over the place.
Or you'll huddle with yourself in a booth. But hey, do you know what? It's a great time for us to play our interview that took place at the end of last week with David Davies of DVS, who is their CTO. He is the expert, and we asked him some great questions around what DVS are all about, what's happening in the security and surveillance market, and that convergence between us and them. So let's play the interview. Hi, Dave. Thanks so much for joining us. Great to have you, and welcome to the group, of course. So we'll jump straight in. Chris and I have been talking about security and surveillance and how we saw from an AV perspective, your industry and our industry really start to work far more closely together. Because of the pandemic. I think a big part of that was around thermal solutions and temperature checking, which, if I'm honest, I wasn't fully aware existed on the scale that they did before the pandemic hit. So I guess my first question to you is going to be, can you tell us a bit about what the pandemic did to your industry and what you saw change and how it's left security and surveillance in its wake?
Yeah, absolutely. And pleasure to be here. So thank you. So yeah, when the pandemic sort of hit for us, again, probably like most industries, we were quite scared of what that would do to us as a company and also the industry. We were lucky that we have a technology provider in Hikvision where they were able to offer a product to help accommodate the current solution, right? So they came to us and approached us with this market-leading product of thermal imaging for temperature screening. So they were really on the front line of this fight with the pandemic to control or do what they could to control this entry to site of people that could, be suspect of carrying this unfortunate disease. So they brought this product to us. We analysed it, and it did have a lot of merit. Definitely worked. So we went to our customer base with it. And luckily, a lot of our customers were still operating right at the early stage, and they had a big need, early on in the retail when it was still open in the supermarkets, retail, event space, etc. Right at that really on early on part of it. We were able to take that technology to those installers and those end users or users of the technology, show them how they can put that in their premises and use it as an application to help them be on the right side of this. And we really did see a big explosion, not just us, as other providers in this industry worldwide that also deployed this technology. But it really did, one, take off, and two, it gave that, through the use of technology, it really gave users comfort that they were doing all they could, for their staff and for people visiting their premises, that they were doing all they could to give that, that fight on the front line. So yeah, we saw a very big uptake in thermal imaging for that very reason.
And what about other areas? So, if that side of the business sort of grew and saw success, did you have categories that really struggled through the pandemic as well?
Yeah, we did, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really good point. So our general run rate product, which is normally our CCTV product, that did decline because a lot of people, whilst they were happy to deploy devices and applications around the fight for COVID, they didn't want additional work that was sort of unnecessary at that time. So our traditional CCTV sales did decline during this period. But interestingly, in the background, we actually saw an increase in different application technology, mainly around access control, because what the pandemic did was force people to restrict access to their building, whereas previously they would be more, easygoing. They would allow anyone to access their building. But obviously this really heightened the need to restrict access to the building to protect property and obviously the people inside that property. So while CCTV application declined, access control and biometric access control using face, not so much fingerprint, but definitely the face, because it's a touch-free, contactless application, that really did increase. So we saw a big uptake in access control and door entry, video intercom door entry. So a more basic form of access control using video verification to allow access to site. And again, that allows the right people to access the site at the right times. And alongside that, we also found a big uptake in time and attendance, because with a lot of home working, everybody was sort of working from home or not working in some instances. Customers really wanted to make sure the right people were on site at the right time. So the time and attendance application really soared for us. So we were able to deliver that exact information of who's on the site at any time, so they could give an audit. If they requested it was an audit, and they could see that they're operating within the guidelines, and they were really trying to prevent access for access control, allow people who were allowed on site, but obviously maintain that access record if required at the time. And that sort of carried on. What we expected at the end of sort of coming to the end of this, luckily, is that we thought we'd saw a decline in this. But if anything, it's made the need for this technology stronger. So the access control and video intercom application and time and attendance along that is really continuing to grow. So we're excited where we can take this as a development moving forward with our customer base, because everybody knew it existed pre-pandemic, but there was a more reluctance to use the technology. Now they've seen the clear benefit, much more acceptance of the technology, especially around facial recognition for access control. And we're seeing a big uptake on that technology now moving forward.
Yeah.
So this is probably a good time then for me to ask you if it's okay. You've just labeled a couple of technologies there that I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't know that was a security product. Could you just give us a quick rundown of the tech and product categories that DVS is selling today?
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of technology effectively. Most of our product revolves around a CCTV product of such. So our access control, video door entry, CCTV, our control platforms, so our software-driven platforms, they all revolve mainly around the CCTV a core product essentially. But we actually have different verticals of where these technology is deployed. So we have a vertical for retail, a vertical for public space monitoring, a vertical for retail from the AV side of it, which we're starting to get into now. Really perimeter security, so that comes into itself how to protect a high security building by a perimeter breach. Education, we're seeing a strong growth area in, and within those verticals, they've got different technologies, so different analytics for different verticals, but all from the same product set, if that makes sense. So we're able to service all of these different verticals, all of these different applications and vendors via one common product set. Or ones that sit within the same ecosystem, which is really nice for us and for our customers, because it's very familiar through the product range. The products that they interact with daily can be used cross sectors. That's really exciting for us.
David, I have a question about that as well. One, I mean, you rattled off a bunch of different verticals, but which one caught you by surprise? Which one did you not expect all of a sudden to get a call from? What vertical surprised you? Was it, was it the restaurant business? Was it, something, what was the, I guess, the unexpected calls or the trend that you saw coming?
For us, a really great question. For us, it'd be the hospitality and retail sector. We are very strong in those sectors pre-pandemic. We were very, very strong in those sectors. But with that pandemic, we always assumed wrongly that would decline, where people wouldn't invest in this technology because they were more focused on, protection of their own business and their bottom line. So we were quite surprised when we started to see this call from those two sectors. Hospitality and retail were extremely good growth areas for us during this pandemic, and have continued to on that growth path now. Where other sectors we were very, very strong in previous, like public space, for instance, which sort of did decline through the nature of this. Those unexpected growth areas have been very kind to us, and we're still seeing the benefit of that now in those two sectors.
Were you involved in like the, when there were mandates that said, hey, there's only so many people allowed in a space? That goes back to you, because I'm in the US. Wherever they could, there was somebody standing at the door with a clicker, kind of doing the old bar thing. Fire code says we can only have, 75 people in here. But did that transformation from the person at the door with the clicker to technology, that took place, and people started investing in that?
So we're very strong on education, and we got a good market influence. So when this product set came around, we're always key on delivering that information to the wider audience of how technology can be used on the front line, not just in the fight for COVID, but just in general, and how technology can really help focus you on delivering something that traditionally you'd have a man with a clicker, for instance, or a clipboard, or an old sort of people counting system. How we can implement technology, not to just give you a video signal anymore, but we're using the data from it to really deliver more than a video signal, and really help you focus on the things that matter, but also deliver on the things that matter to you personally in the background through the use of technology.
And what about so tech evolution in your area, and specifically, I guess, around CCTV? It's IP cameras have been around now for quite some time. Where do you think you are in that sort of video signal to networked camera evolution? Are we close to getting to the point now where we'll only have IP cameras looking after our CCTV set? For mine and Chris's area, we're watching now NDI technology really take over the majority of UC&C camera, and I'd say 5 to 8 years time, we wouldn't expect many USB cameras to still be in use. Where do you think that is in your version of that?
Great question. And if you'd have asked me 6 months ago, even, I think the answer would have been different. The technology is always evolving. The Hikvision as a manufacturer always pushing the boundaries, always coming up with new innovative ways to deliver technology to the customer. So market trend, yes, in 2 to 3 years, we'll only see IP cameras. That the whole sort of analog market will sort of fade away in the background, and we should see very strong in the IP market. But as far as technological advancement, every 6 months, we're going through a whole new process of delivering new content, new analytics, new services to the customer, and that will never stop evolving. With the new SaaS involvement that we're looking at, that will continue to develop and continue to give benefit to the customer. And the video signal will become secondary. In 2 to 3 years, the video signal in essence will become secondary, also really not looked at unless it needs to be. It's all about the data, the analytics, and what information we can provide to the customer, either pre or post event.
It's incredible that you brought that up, because one of the questions I have right away is the analytics part. Because prior to the pandemic, analytics was there and it was kind of part of the thing. But over the last 2 years, analytics in every aspect of what we know in a work basis has completely been shattered, right? There's people working from home. The businesses are not, the office buildings are not populated. With the use of your analytics process, you can possibly be influencing how those work spaces are going to be designed in the future, right?
Exactly.
So if it's truly going to be a hybrid, if it's truly going to be 50-50 work from home, work from the office, that key element that you are pulling out, extracting that data, whether it is people in the building, out of the building, how they move through the building, is going to lead to a bigger conversation. Possibly now your analytics are going to be not just done by security guys who want to know who's walking in at 11 o'clock at night, but now it's going into those early conversations with the architects, with the designers that are, looking at lease spaces and possibly, condensing how a space is used or attacking how the best way to lay out a space in the new world of work from anywhere and hoteling and all that sort of stuff. So I am super interested where that is going to go.
Yeah, what a great question. And right, we can actually provide a lot of that detail now to a customer. So we do have a very wide set of AI analytics, and that's growing continually. Every few months we're adding to that product set. But we can do, space optimization, occupancy, heat mapping, A to B testing. We can deliver all of that mostly in a retail environment right now, but we're now getting brought into, as you said there, how we optimize efficiency and space with people and resource and time, not just in retail, whilst that's very important for a retailer and how they optimize that space, but also within, education, within hotels, like you just said, hospitality. We're now getting brought into those conversations early on in the conversation to see how we can really optimize that space through the use of technology again. So we're removing the need for people and using technology to deliver on that front.
So we're getting bullied by producer Ben telling us to wrap it up, but I have a question that I hadn't planned to ask you that sort of come out of this one, and that's around privacy. So the sort of utilization of space and so on. This has been something that actually in AV has been quite talked about for a while, and it all sort of came out around room booking solutions. So when we started to see the panels that sit outside the meeting room that tell you who's in there, they added in some capability to those products, like, well, if somebody hasn't confirmed that meeting within X time period, make the room available, and so on. If you have a repeat offender of no-shows, etc., name and shame that person and tell them you're not allowed that room anymore. And when COVID hit, there was a lot of, well, how do we work out how many people are in a room? And even before that, looking at room utilization or what sort of person was using the room, where they were sitting, how they were sitting, and so on. All of these analytics were becoming really of interest. And we have a couple of UC camera manufacturers that have built-in chipsets or worked with third-party software providers to provide some of these analytics. And actually, we found quite a lot of pushback and customers saying, I'd rather you did it with a sensor than with a camera, because I've got a lot of staff that don't want their image captured, or they're not sure what's going to happen with that image. This must be something that you guys come across a hell of a lot more than we do, because so much of what you do is capturing those images. So what happens to them? Where do they get stored, and how do you overcome that? What are you going to do with my personal IP, and how do you cleanse that data, get rid of it, and keep me safe, and not Big Brother stalk me? What is your answer to that?
That's a great question. So yeah, absolutely, it is a thing in that, we see this every day, all day. I guess from our industry, people are used to being caught on CCTV, because the nature of a CCTV camera, right, is that you capture the event that's going on around it, and therefore you capture people, faces, and data. But in the security industry, by nature, we're always looking to deliver on security. So with our manufacturers, we're looking to do education to the end user and to the installer of how we can best deliver on that privacy to make sure camera placement is correct, GDPR guidelines are followed, because that's a large part of this, is how the data is used by the end user and installer. And it's really, a lot of it is around education, but also the technology, how it's deployed, and making sure that when it is deployed, that we do the best we can for that data to be secured and not used in a way that would be detrimental to the system or the person in front of that camera. So yeah, we are very much on that educational side and helping customers to deliver on that safely, accurately, and without causing any misabuse or harm to them.
Awesome. Now, Dave, you have a YouTube channel, and you've got a lot more YouTube friends than Chris and I do at the moment. So Chris is the king of Twitter, and we hereby name you the king of YouTube.
Thank you.
So it seems only fair that we make sure that you plug your own channel and tell people where they can come and find some of your great content if they want to learn more about security and surveillance.
Well, thank you. That's very, very nice of you. And yeah, it's a great channel. I know I do head it up, so I'm going to say that. But we're on if you want to check out the video, head over to YouTube, type DVS Limited in there, give us a like and a follow, and look at the content. Lots of educational content in there around the security. It's not all technical. A lot of the content we put is about education around these topics that we've spoken about. So please do go check it out.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. Looking forward to working together.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Man, he is a fountain of knowledge when it comes to this stuff. I learn every time I hear about this. Unfortunately, it's not something that I've, spent a lot of time in, but it's definitely not just a growing segment for as a part of our industry, but it's also very interesting in that it used to be something that was not out front. It was not really spoken about. It kind of just did its job quietly in the background. But obviously, over the last, I would say 5-10 years, has really just moved forward in the whole big, especially when it comes to planning and obviously the good work that it can do. So very interesting conversation, and I can't wait to see what comes from this obviously acquisition or group merger, whatever.
It's incredibly exciting. And I think that, that knowledge that shines through from Dave with him joining us there in that interview. I've met a handful of of our new DVS colleagues, and that really is the level of expertise across the board, and it's fantastic. And that makes it even more exciting, I guess, for me in my role, particularly, I guess, when you look at my background being in that sort of IPTV and signage space and image processing. It's really exciting because what they have been spending so much time developing or trying to outsource to get that extra functionality and analysis capability into their products has already been developed to such a high standard in the security and surveillance industry. So, if we can introduce some of those vendors and brands to each other, it's a really quite exciting time, particularly when we're coming out of the pandemic. We've seen this level of investment from certain campuses, stores, establishments, etc. And now they're left with technology that in some parts of the world doesn't need to function how it did before. So we are going to talk a little bit about events, which is a great time for me to shout out to some of my group team colleagues who finally last week managed to fly out to Dubai, thanks to the ease of restrictions that is gradually rolling out across the world, and meet our colleagues at NMK for the first time since we acquired them. So this is a great sign of a change in the times. I personally booked my flights and accommodation to InfoComm in December.
What?
So, yep. So I wasn't going to risk it, Chris, because you guys wouldn't let me into the country last year. So I made a firm stance to book early for this year for InfoComm. But it's a good time to ask those of you who are AV listeners and watchers today. InfoComm, you book your flights quite far in advance if you're not a US national, if you're not based locally. So did you already do that? And when they moved ISE, has that changed any of your plans? Have you been forced to pick between one of the two? I personally am hoping to attend both, but we'd love to hear from you if it has forced you into a position where you've had to pick one show over the other because of them being in consecutive months. So, but we whilst we're talking events, we have a handful of our own coming up in the UK. So, as I just mentioned, ISE moved. So we reached out to some of our brands in the UK and said, hey, if you had something that you wanted to announce at ISE that will come to market between now and the revised dates of the show, do it with us. And that's what's happening. So we have, we're drip feeding on our socials and on our website right now, the various different vendors who've chosen to attend our new tech open house event. That's the 9th and 10th of March this year at Innovation House in Bracknell. And everybody that's attending has something to tell you, something new to tell you. We have ISCV Expo in March. That's the 23rd of March in Coventry, an audio and communications focused show where you will find a number of Midwich partners. And then finally for the UK, Own the Pixel, and that's a validated systems event that works back from the physical pixel of your LED screen, your projected image, or your large format display image back through every step that gets back to the playback device, and looks at, and then that will be a really educational event and is relevant to anyone that is working in any form of video signal, digital signage, LED screen, etc. That one is the 23rd and 24th of March. But Chris, what is happening over the pond?
Well, this week I finally, since I left London, I've been back under bubble wrap and under my desk, and now I get to pull the bubble wrap off and actually go back on the road. So this week I will be in Florida, and I'm going to go join our friends at AVI-SPL at their national sales meeting. Myself, Bill Reamer, Bill O'Donnell will be joining as representatives of Starin, and our brands. Some of the brands that we have will be there, so we will be bringing some brands, and we will be catching up with some of the brands that we rep down in at their expo, or the kind of the exhibit in between the sales conference. So I'm excited to go there. And they recently did a purchase over in Ireland. So you're more familiar with Sonics, I'm assuming.
I love how M&A now has become so rife that we refer to it as, oh, they did a purchase. They bought something at the store. So but yeah, I mean, as we continue on this industry-wide M&A journey and consolidation, this one's quite exciting. AVI-SPL, congratulations. Sonics AV in Ireland. I hope that we hear from them very soon at our own Irish branch of Midwich, which is Square One. So yeah, great to see, and awesome, Chris, that you'll be able to travel again.
Yes, going back and getting on an airplane will be fun and interesting. But of course, this is all for me. It's Super Bowl season, and when Super Bowl season is in, that means not football, American football, or the UK brand of football. InfoComm season is a season in into itself. So we prepare long and hard, and I'm part of the team that's responsible for putting together the InfoComm show. And today, the special announcement that I kind of teased or hinted at on the Twitterverse is that we are going to be there. Our booth and information will pop up in the lower third here. Both Midwich and Starin will be united as a group, and we will be both representing ourselves at Vegas. So it'll be interesting and fun. But we are also working closely for those that went to the last in-person InfoComm prior to this year, which was, I think, 2019. We will be working with Silver State Service Dogs. We will be bringing a charity with us to the event. We at Starin have had a good relationship with people providing service animals to them. So we could carry on that by working with the local service animal provider in Silver State Silver Dogs. You can find out more information about their across the socials at @3S Dogs. They can be found on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even on TikTok probably. So you can find out a little bit more information. There's a barcode there you can scan, and we're trying to raise money for a disabled veteran or for a first responder who is looking to get a service animal to assist them in their daily life. It's not something that's covered under insurance here, so it's something that we kind of take near and dear. This is just not a fly-by-night. This is obviously the second time that we've done a charity like this, and one of our people, Melissa Dillman, actually brought home a golden retriever from our last InfoComm thing the last InfoComm we had the dogs at the show, and she actually brought them home for a few months with as part of the socialization process that they go through.
Oh,
So it's a charity that runs deep for us and something that we believe in, and we'd love you guys to help join us and support us. So
I definitely did not know that was an option. I have every one of those puppies.
yeah, she brought him home, and then unfortunately she had to, it was painful because you bring home the dog's name was
Yeah.
Ferguson. They lived with them and their other dogs, and then they had to take him back to Florida, and
Oh.
because he was getting ready for the final graduation stage that he would be going through. So, and then he was off to live with his new person, and
Ah,
it's
amazing though.
it's a good story. But
Yeah,
yeah, InfoComm is up. It's coming. It's coming in fast. Obviously, ISE. We're going to have some people there as well. Some of our leadership from here will be heading over to join you guys over at ISE. We have an event coming up in May that is, I don't have all the details, but we will be in Tennessee for a road show. So you can probably get more information on that coming up. That's called a teaser, folks. I don't have all the information, so I'm just leaving a little bit out there to see if you guys will come back. But anyway, we've reached the point of the show that it's time for what you all came really here for, other than me and Jenny rambling on about things that we know and don't know in this case, because we're learning about security as we move along. But it is time for our competition. Jenny, what's the fabulous question that we have to ask, and what's the prize that we have?
So it's £75, euros of an Amazon e-voucher. And the question is related to our recent activity this year. So Midwich Group has acquired DVS recently, as you know from today's show. But which other UK business did they acquire this month? And you enter at midwich.com/MLComm9. I don't think that answer will be too hard to find out. Now, we can also announce who was the winner from last month's competition. And congratulations go to Andy Cracknell from Breeze Events. So thank you very much, Andy. Our team will get in touch and let you know how to claim your prize. Chris,
Yes.
Next month in March, it will be our Midwich Live 1 year or first anniversary.
It's been a year already.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. It's been a year.
I'm getting choked up.
I've come up with an idea. I figured that as it's our first anniversary, it's very important that we should get each other a gift.
Okay.
But we're on, almost opposite sides of the planet. So that can be tricky. In fact, shipping something now quite possibly wouldn't make it in time to the other one.
Second year anniversary.
Yeah, exactly. But I have a plan to overcome that. So
Sure.
On our next show, I would like you and I to prepare a gift. We are going to buy ourselves the gift that we think the other one would buy for us.
Okay.
And
how well do you know your co-host? This is going to be it.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, if anybody would like to give us any inspiration or ideas, feel free to do that via our usual social channels. So thank you so much for joining us. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jenny Hicks, or via email, jenny.hicks@midwich.com, or on Twitter @MidwichJenny. Let me know what you think Chris would buy me so I can buy it to show Chris on our 1 year anniversary show next month. Chris, where can people find you?
You can find, hold on. Yeah. Oh, wait. I was just handed this. Before I say goodbye, make sure to say happy birthday to Hannah Moody, whose birthday passed yesterday. So thank you, Producer Ben, for that note. And I appreciate that. Happy birthday, Hannah. And you can find me on Twitter, Chris_Netto. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm an open networker. You know what that means, right? That means if you send me something, I will most likely accept it. Unless you are a spam bot, then I will not expand.
How long have you been on Twitter, Chris?
Today is my 11th year anniversary. I'm almost a teenager at Twitter. This is awesome. When I hit Twitter puberty, it's going to be crazy. right? But as of right now, as of today, I'm the big 1-1. I've hit double digits. I am a wily veteran, teenager, almost teenager on Twitter. But yes, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. Those are the two best places to connect with me professionally. If you want to see pictures of pizza and food and stuff that I am doing, you can try and find me on Instagram. I'm there too. I don't have Facebook. I am one of those folks that said, you know what, that's for my mom, not for me. But yes, connect with us and connect with us. Use the hashtag Midwich Live. Midwich Live is, obviously what we're doing here, but using that hashtag is the best way to get a hold of us throughout the month, because not only do we do this one show, but we're social media savvy, and we're out here every day looking and following those tags. So if you guys need anything from us, you know where to find us. And I'm pretty much accessible 24/7. And when I'm sleeping, Jenny's actually awake. That's the beauty of time difference. So folks, thank you so much for coming by. We appreciate you taking some time and hanging out with us and listening to this great story of where we're going and taking security and surveillance, because that was an important topic that we wanted to get to. And another thing that I want to ask is, if there is something that you guys want to see covered, please let us know, because Jenny's the smart one and I'm the mouthpiece. So between the both of us, she can figure it out and I can try to hype it out. So please use us to your advantage. Who else is going to give you a deal like that? Jenny, are we good? This is it. We're
that's
done.
it. I think we can wrap up. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. If you haven't made it today, it's very close to month end and we're streaming on a Monday. Please still comment, because we'll get all those comments. And it's really great intel. And obviously all of your peers who are watching as well will be able to see those comments too.
Yes.
So hashtag stand with Ukraine, everyone, and our colleagues there via Restream. Stay strong and love and prayers. And thanks everyone for joining us today. See you next time.